if I walk, the gown moves later than I do. That's drag. Follow through. When I stop walking, the gown continues. That's follow through. Overlapping action is more exciting. Overlapping action. Imagine that I'm walking. So here we are, I'm walking away. My gown is actually on a slightly different cycle. It has a slightly different rhythm to me. If I had long hair, which I don't, and the hair was bouncing around, the hair would be overlapping action because it would be a slightly different rhythm to my walk. So those are the three. And they're presented by animators as a sort of mystical, magical trick, but they are all part of the same process. If Dima's moustache were bigger, it would also be the subject of overlapping action, drag, and follow through. Just very slightly bigger, and we would start to get drag, particularly if he was running fast. If you're running like a superhero like this, then your coat flutters in the background. There's got lots of drag. Most people. So your hands would have drag. That would be quite exciting. There. So drag, follow through, and overlapping action are three things that we need to do probably on Friday actually. And those things you need to learn. Once you've got those, and once you've got a basic walk, you can animate anything. Now, the other day I taught you a basic walk which works. We talked about the contact position there. We talked about the important passing position here. We talked just before the end of the last lesson, we talked about the need to do 3 steps. So the third step, you're getting back to where you started. Step 1, and then you're back, and then you've got a cycle. One step is going to give you probably about the best example of that is a 12-frame walk. I'm going to show you these in a few minutes. 12-frame walk is march time. So 12 frames, you're going to have to do 24 frames to get back to the beginning. Traditionally, we have a 12-frame walk, a 16-frame walk, a 20-frame walk, 24, and 32. 32 is quite slow. As you slow down the walk, of course, you're going to get a slightly different character developing. If you speed up the walk, either you reduce the size of the character, or you end up with something really quite crazy, like a run. Not quite a run, but... So little dogs, Vasilisa, who you've met, the little dog, sausage dog, she walks on about 4 frames. She's on a walk of 4s, so every 8 frames would be a cycle for her back legs. And that's about as fast as you can ever get with a walk. Any faster than that, you just simply go to a blur. Chickens have quite an interesting walk. I sequence called Disney's Robin Hood. It's not a good film, really, but it's got some interesting points in it. A lot of scenes in Robin Hood are stolen from other films. There's a dance in Robin Hood which is stolen from Snow White. And essentially the animators, the 12 old men at Disney, just wanted to do something which they enjoyed, and they used characters which they'd already tried out before, and they just put them all together in a single story. It's not appalling, but it's not a great film. It's not Disney at their best. After Robin Hood, there's a thing called the Fox and the Hound, and that's the last film that Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas worked on, and they wrote a book called The Illusion of Life, which is a textbook about how to animate like Disney. If you want to animate well, you have to have that book. There's a lot of rubbish in the book about who drowned the cat, and who lit a match under Walt Disney's feet, and all this nonsense about the Disney mythology, which is not interesting as far as animation is concerned. But in between all that are all the tricks of how to animate. And it's all there, you just have to know how to find it. There's another book by Tony White. I can't remember what the name of that is, but it's a very good book. There's a third book by Richard Williams, which is probably the best book, which is called the Animator Survival Kit. Then there are various people turning up on the internet who used to be in Disney, who are now telling people how to do animation. The principles work for 3D or for 2D, it doesn't matter. There's nobody over here. It doesn't matter, my class is getting so small. It doesn't matter whether you are doing 2D or 3D, the principles remain the same. And the principles are about how to transfer what we see in live action into animation. Because animation is about caricature, whether you are doing it in 3D or 2D, and actually whether you're doing it as a form of special effects, like Star Wars. We are counting the minutes. Or whether you are doing something wild and wacky like Ren and Stimpy, or TVC, or one of these, the Simpsons, not the Simpsons, Family Guy. We love Family Guy. So even if you're doing that, the principles remain the same. And the principles are, at the top, that you have a walk, that you know how to do the walk. There are, in fact, 12 principles that the Disney people laid down. I think we can reduce them down to about 3. Know how to walk, understand anticipation, which would involve squash and stretch, and point 3 is about follow through, drag, and what's the other one? Follow through, drag, and I started talking about this. Follow through, drag, and overlapping action. That's it. There we are. Once you have those 3 basics, everything else is an elaboration on these principles. But without these principles, there is no animation. There can be no animation because you don't have an understanding of weight. After that, everything is really a footnote. If you've done animation, if you've done anatomy classes, which I think you all have, yes? You've done some anatomy. You've done anatomy. There we are. Anatomy classes are essential for animation. Understanding basic anatomy. You don't actually have to go and cut people up. You just need to know, for example, that when that underneath this thing here, this face, and underneath the beard, which we have to pretend doesn't exist, there's only one bit of my face that moves. It's this bit. Yeah. Only the jaw moves. So if you, hello, come. So if you're animating a face and your mouth is going all over the place and the top of the face is going all over the place, you're actually wrong. And you're going to lose control of your character. So how does the main body of the skull move? What controls it? Exactly. The main body of the skull is controlled by the neck, which must have an influence, therefore, on the shoulders and on the spine. The only thing that moves from the face is the jaw. But once you've got that idea, and then you look at what people can do with their jaw, some people, you say open your mouth and you get this tiny little space, and some people say open your mouth, and it's like looking into the cavity of doom. Huge thing. Some people have the most enormous mouth, and some people have this tiny little thing, and then some people lie somewhere in the middle. As you move from a closed mouth to an open mouth, then you've got lots of interesting things you can do with perspective. We saw at the end of the last lesson, I showed you a little bit of Christmas Carol, and when the ghost of Marley appears, undoes his the bandage that ties up his mouth. The mouth drops down in a huge perspective thing. So the mouth seems to fall much further than it should. But if you look at the drawings carefully, it's just simply the camera angle has shifted. It's very carefully and very well drawn. And therefore it feels believable. The same thing with the Disney thing. Most of the Disney drawings, they're believable because the skull is anchored to the neck, and only the mouth, only the jaw is moving up and down. However, once you've accepted that, all this stuff on top of the jaw, the cheeks and so on, will then work in principles of overlapping action and drag. So somebody with these huge cheeks, you see them occasionally, as you move the face round, and it comes back again and settles. And this is exciting. We talked a little bit last week about lip sync. Lip sync is all really about trial and error, and there's sort of mythology about moving the lip sync slightly off the actual syncing position, and it looks slightly better. But there is no hard, fast rule about it. You just have to try it and see whether or not it works well. If you want to lip sync well, you lip sync on the beat and on the vowel and the consonant exactly as it should be, and then you move it. I'm afraid what I tend to do is then move it to that point, and then I can't remember which way I moved it, and I then get into great confusion, and I have to go back to the beginning. But lip sync is a much bigger issue. I have to confess I'm trying to find a formula for lip syncing which doesn't follow the Disney formula. So I'm playing around with it a great deal at the moment. I want to do animated singing, and I don't want to have that gesture. In fact, I'm banning that gesture from my studio. Never that, because this is, in fact, with the shoulders coming up, you've all seen this. That's Aladdin. But it's almost every Disney character from about 1950 onwards. It's a way of driving into the into a little bit of conversation or a little bit of speech. But I think it's simply a formula. You can break that formula, you can create your own new formulae. You can create new systems to approach lip sync. The greatest new lip sync discovery in the last 30 years was made by a company called Aardman. And they found this new shape for E, which is just teeth sticking right out here. E. And they got that from a particular sound which is made in the east of in the west of England and in Yorkshire. It's a very strong E sound. E. And they picked that up and they put that into all of their animation. So Shaun the Sheep does it, Wallace and Gromit do it, and now I notice Disney is also doing it. If you have a look at Tangled and what's the latest one? Frozen. They've all got an element of this E thing, which is a new discovery. I hope by the end of next year I will have an entire series of new mouth shapes which everybody will adopt. But we wait to see whether or not that's going to happen. I just have to be successful with it. Let's have a look at some of these walks. Now, with the walk cycle that I was telling you about, I was putting all the emphasis after the passing position. So you go from here, and then here, and here. Here, and here. Just anticipating the contact. Now, what I want to do today is to clean up that idea a little bit. I want you to stop thinking about just the feet. I want to move up the body a little bit, and once you move up the body, you have to start thinking about putting weight on either side of the passing position. But this will still give you a lot more energy than anything else. And what in fact you're doing here is you're following a thing called the up position. So this is your passing position, and then as you move into here, you're in fact, your hips are going up a little bit further. And that would traditionally be what is called the up position, and that cushions you into the contact. If there's an up position on this side of the passing position, on this side, there's a down position. Harder to demonstrate that because it's sort of here. Now, why is that important? So halfway between that and that is your down position. That's the lowest point in the entire walk. Halfway between that and that is your up position, which is the highest point in your walk. Okay? I said I was going to revise slightly. Is this too horrifying?
No. In fact, when I did my walk,
you followed this principle.
Yes, I found some pictures with basic poses for...
Yes. That will become evident when I have a look at it, I'm afraid. The reason I wanted to emphasize this, and this is because it will give you a lot more energy on this side of the walk, which is where you need it. Shall I just anticipate the next bit? So you're getting the whole lesson all at once. That Greek tragedy, the messenger comes rushing in and saying, "What's the matter?" say the audience, and the Greek and the messenger says, "The king is dead." That's the whole tragedy. And then the chorus will say, "Why? How did it happen?" Okay, I'll tell you. And that's the rest of your play. So this is the summary and then we will go in for all the detail. When we put the arms in, we need the up and the down position to locate them. You can, of course, have the arms swinging all over the place, but it's going to look a bit peculiar. The only position you need to know, so your arms are, so here, this leg is out. What's that? Is that the left leg? Left leg out, right leg back. That means opposite arms, so that. So that's position 1, and position 2 will be that. In the middle, my arms are going to be like that. In the down position, my arms will reach their highest wave. In the up position, my arms are going to be slightly one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. They're basically an in-between. And they're not doing very much. They're in-betweening just before they're going to go back out again. So it's your down position where your arms are at their most expressive. The up position, they're not interesting. And that's it. If you follow those principles, you have a very interesting walk. Everything else is an elaboration on that. There's quite a nice twist from one side to the other, actually. Not a lot of up and down. There's a very slight jump, but that is pretty usual. Yes. It's very deliberate, foot back, isn't it?
Maybe.
Yes. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Is that the same movement as the previous one?
It was made like a top.
Absolutely, yes. No more. But next week maybe, or Friday. Friday? Can we get something on Friday?
We have one more.
Ah, excellent. Now, can we just go back to this feeling, this sort of slight, you've got this slight sharpness at the end there. And I think it's possibly because of the robe, possibly because of the costume. I would love to see the skeleton without the costume.
There is no skeleton.
Yeah.
Only feet and
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very nice. It's very interesting when you move from this sort of walk, which you got. He's on 12s, isn't he? As well. Yeah. When you move from that sort of walk, and you start putting clothes on the characters, what you can end up with is slightly sort of. The walk is very slightly camp. It's a little bit sort of over fussy. In fact, I'd almost expect him to be wearing high shoes. Does that make sense? It's a little bit. It works. It works. It was just sort of slightly unexpected because the walk itself was fairly conventional, and then we got, ooh, interesting. And that's always going to happen. Something happens when you start dressing up your characters. And then you have to go back and you have to decide, do I need to make that walk a little bit slower? Do I need to drag that foot a little bit? And it's something to do with all this sort of costume and stuff. The eye is attracted to bits which it wasn't originally attracted to. When I looked at your skeleton, the rough drawing, I was looking at the centre, I wasn't looking at the feet. The centre had a lot of life to it. It was really very, very, very energetic. When you put the costume on, the centre of the figure stopped being interesting. And so the interest moved down to the feet. Now, whether those feet really were flicking a little bit, and there's no reason why they shouldn't, they caught my attention more than the top part. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Getting a walk which reflects the quality of the character is one of the hardest things to do, and you have to keep going back and redoing it. I worked last night for about 4 hours on walk cycles and things. I got a few. They're very scratchy. I'm going to play them to you. Some of them work. I don't think all of them work. We can't access the internet here, can we? In fact, Misha, we can't get the internet in here, can we? I think not. I've got a film which I made about 3 years ago. A lot of it is stuff I'm not terribly keen on. I had 2 weeks to make a film to compete for a competition. In fact, I won the competition. It was rather sweet of them. But the thing was a talk by me, which I rotoscoped. And because that took so much time, and because I was so bored with it, I put in a lot of walk cycles with more interesting things happening. So there's about 10 walk cycles in this film, and they're all slightly different. One of them I mentioned last week. One of them, I did the walk cycle, and then I found that it had a limp. So I put a bandage on the character's foot, because by that point I didn't have time to correct it. And I had a look at it a few nights ago, and I was surprised. I was surprised actually by how watchable it was. I'll play it now. Look, it's about 5 minutes long. It's exactly 5 minutes long, if we can find it. We need a volume actually to find it. Can you hear this? We're not interested in it. There's one. And these little sheets are quite fun. Here's another one. That's really me, I suppose. That is me. Sorry.
And persistent comes today. These are right, honesty, and responsibility. Now, the story of the cave is about educational cables and the link between knowledge and leadership. Plato believed a good leader could be either a blessing or a curse. But good leaders are dependent on and reflect the society which gave them power in the first place. And for that matter, Plato would hold that democracy was not a positive experience, and nor, of course, was the dominance of money or
This is quite a nice walk cycle here, this girl.
But this, of course, was just theory.
That's doing to the front leg what you're doing to the back leg.
In modern terms, you cannot be a good boss if you do not know your job, if you don't know about the product, if you can't see your business in the wider context. And more than that, if you can't do this, you should lead it.
Now, two people here. There. Nice little wall. Very simple.
A movement between the classes is based on education. Nietzsche can be learned, but some people are better disposed to lead than others. So the concept of a ruler with absolute sovereignty, whether good or bad, persists. You find it in Thomas Hobbes, in Leviathan, then modified in Locke, and even in Rousseau, who cautioned common good over self-interest, but then Plato already had that idea, and more generalizing, it emphasized
Very Disney
science and
character.
ethics. Of course, there often comes a time, as in the case of modern Greece and in France, when the people may be right.
Nice one here, Scotland.
Common
Look
good.
at one.
Consistency, consideration, kindness. These are the virtues of the confident boss, but recognizing the limitations too. There's a story of the modern Nasruddin. And a friend says, you should show your wife who's boss in your own house. Nasruddin says, there's no need. She knows. The real boss is self-evident. And you may be boss here, but you're not boss there. You shouldn't forget that. Now, the attempt to put Plato's theories into practice,
Here.
Dionysus
Yep.
II, and
He's limping.
by Aristotle with Alexander the Great were not really successful. In fact, with the Dionysuses were an unqualified disaster. The second point of honesty is the imagery point. In the modern era, John Maynard
It isn't quite nice.
in contrast to Machiavelli, says that the leader should be a reckless truth teller. But truth is relative. And the call that Plato makes for the use of religion to keep people in their place, what he calls the noble lie.
Next one is fun. It's Hitler.
The big lie, Hitler says, the more colossal the lie, the more people are going to believe it. Plato's using religion to keep people obedient to the leader. And he sanitizes religion. He says, take the nasty bit out. He's a sort of Walt Disney of the pre-Christian era. Keep people in their place by telling them nice stories. It's a myth itself, a form of truth, just not a literal form. So we have to be very careful with Plato's concept of honesty. But it's there nevertheless. And finally, responsibility. The quality of our lives will depend on how much we are prepared to take responsibility